I would tell any Gen Z on day one is that while they come with a lot of qualifications, great credentials, they understand the digital world, at the same time, they need to be a little patient. They want immediate gratification, they want immediate recognition, which often takes time. They need to spend a little more time in understanding that. They need to value experience as well. Today's Gen Z, when they come, they want to do only the high end of the work. But every work has a learning experience. No work is, demeaning for anyone. They need to build relations with people. Credibility comes when I have delivered results, when I have proven myself. That is very important for Gen Zs to start, that while you may come from the IITs and the IIMs or wherever, with the PhDs and all, it is important to show results at workplace, how you have built the results. The difference between success and failure is often humility, and that is very important when one commences one career. You need to earn your stripes, you need to deliver results before you are valued. You will be valued, and I'm sure anybody coming with the right credentials will deliver. But you cannot be impatient about it. HR typically has to have a lot of influencing skills, and that holds true for any function actually, even for sales and for anybody. But those skills will never be taken by AI. AI can create a job description. AI can analyze resumes, and we are using AI to do interviews. AI can do all of that. But at the end of the day, ability to influence people, ability to build a connection with another person, ability to understand the other person, judgment, as we say, those are the things that will, at least not in the foreseeable future, those certainly remain human.
Welcome to Office Tales and People podcast. Today, I have somebody who's a seasoned CHRO in India, worked with multiple organizations, and I met him, I think about 15 years back when he was with PepsiCo. But today, he's been working for India's first pharmaceutical company, which is Cadila Pharmaceuticals. He's based in Ahmedabad, but today, when I'm meeting him back in the same place where we first met, which was PepsiCo in Gurgaon, I'm really excited to invite you, Kinjal, today. Welcome on Office Tales and People podcast. And I'm so excited because we met really, really long back. Today when we are meeting again. I'm going to take up some very fresh questions for Gen Z and not the usual HR questions, okay? So, are you ready?
Yeah, Shikha, thank you so much for firstly having me. It's a pleasure reconnecting again after so many years, and great to be here. So, I'll try to, answer the questions as candidly as I can.
So, my first question. In fact, this question is truly something that I felt for myself. Gen Z enter the workforce with a lot of passion and a lot of purpose, and sometimes a lot of impatience. What is that one reality of the corporate that Gen Z should know on day one when they join?
So I have been working with a lot of Gen Zs in my organization, Cadila Pharmaceuticals, and we have been hiring Gen Zs in a big way. We have Gen Zs in HR as well. One of the things that I would, tell any Gen Z on day one is that while they come with a lot of qualifications, great credentials, lot of digital fluency, they understand the digital world far better than I would ever do. At the same time, they need to be a little patient. They need immediate kind of results. They want immediate gratification. They want immediate recognition, which often takes time. That is one that I will say. They need to have a little bit patience in terms of understanding the ropes, because every business is different. Every company is different. They need to spend a little more time in understanding that. Second, they need to value experience as well, because today's workforce has at least 3 or 4 generations who are there together. Now, if a Gen Z entering and they discard the Gen Xers or even the baby boomers who are very much a part of the workforce, they tend to lose a lot in terms of what experience brings on board. So while the digital literacy is great and that is a huge value to any organization, they also need to learn from the people who have been in the world for a longer period. They have seen the ups and downs. There may be a lot of things that they can learn from there. That's the second thing that I will say. The third thing that I will say is that no work is, demeaning for anyone. So when we started our career, we were comfortable starting with anything. Today's Gen Z, when they come, they want to do only the high end of the work. But every work has a learning experience. People learn the ropes by, doing the foundational work, and that cannot be ignored. So they have to be okay with doing that foundational work. The last part that I would say, and that again something that I have experienced, Gen Zs often, and I don't want to kind of typecast anybody, they need to build relations with people, because at the end of the day, no matter what AI does and however much work may be automated, it is ultimately people who will run the business, whether today or 10 years from now. If they do not build relations with people across the length and breadth of the organization, sooner than later they will hit a roadblock. So it is fine to work alone, but it is equally important to, intermix with people across generations, across social strata who are working in the organization, learn from them, understand what makes them motivated, so on and so forth. So these are the four things that I would say.
Awesome. I think it's pretty consolidated. And also, I would recommend every Gen Z to hear this. Awesome. So my next question. If a 22-year-old employee walked into your office and said, I want a successful career, but I don't know where to start, what would be the first three things you'd tell them to do? Are we repeating the question that we've already answered?
Somewhat I have answered,
Yeah.
But I will say that, one thing is that build network, build relation. But what I have not said is build credibility. Because anything, while credibility is a function of competence and delivered results. So you have to have both. While I may have the credentials, but if I don't have results to prove myself, I will not start on a successful career. So a credibility comes when I have delivered results, when I have proven myself. That is very important for Gen Zs to start, that while you may come from the IITs and the IIMs or wherever, with the PhDs and all, it is important to show results at workplace, how you have built the results. That will be very important. Relationship across is very, very important. Humility is another fact that I have not spoken about in the earlier thing. Humility is very important. The difference between success and failure is often humility, and that is very important when one commences one career. So these are the three things that I will say. Proven track record, proven results. So one has to ensure that one is, delivering the results, keeping commitments. If I have said I will deliver something by Friday afternoon, I deliver something by Friday afternoon. I do not find an excuse to say why it cannot happen.
I think keeping deadlines is a very big challenge in today's time. I mean, I personally also feel that that is a big challenge. I'm still learning how to deal with Gen Z on that.
So that commitment is very important, and of course relationships.
So I'm a little curious about one thing. Have you seen any drop in the pharmaceutical hiring, people wanting to be in pharmaceutical industry? Is there a drop in this kind of a business? Because I'm just trying to understand, has tech taken over so much that the people in India are not wanting to come to pharmaceutical industry or not?
Yes, you're right, Shikha, in the sense that tech has taken over everything. So even in the pharma world, the entire piece on robotics and AI has taken over R&D, it has taken over HR, it has taken over every aspect. So you don't need to be in a specific industry to be in tech. Any industry you go, any function you go, AI and tech is taking over in that sphere in any case. So it doesn't matter.
But
so
in pharmaceutical, you have a very chemical-based formulas and the kind of medicines that are developed. And that needs a lot of foundational work. It cannot be replaced by tech only. You would need human hands to do so much of work.
Of course.
So are you seeing any drop in that kind of higher, or it's still maintained?
It's still maintained. It's still maintained. We use a lot of robotics and AI in our formulation R&D, in our API R&D. In fact, just before this, I was talking to you about our injectable plant.
Right.
We have an injectable plant in Udaipur, which end to end you walk through, you won't find a single person. There is basically one, finger you will find who's kind of pressing buttons. Otherwise, it is a completely automated plant.
Wow,
In
okay.
fact, we almost half jokingly say that now the manufacturing head needs to be an IT person and not an engineer or not a person with a technical background.
Right.
There is so much of IT involved in manufacturing that it is virtually all technology led and not manufacturing. The typical BTech BE kind of a mechanical engineer or chemical engineer is not the person who's required for that.
Right. Awesome. So, what is one behavior that silently kill careers early? Something young professionals don't even realize that they're doing. I think it's a question that's come from a very personal experience.
So, I'm just trying to relate to my experiences with a lot of Gen Zs in the last 3-4 years in particular. One thing I can say is that there should not be a sense of entitlement. That, when one comes from a sense of entitlement that I have come with this pedigree, this background, the company has to value me, the company has to promote me, the company has to give me this, that, and all, or has to listen to me, has to take my views, that becomes a little bit of a challenge where things often get derailed. What is very important is that value comes once, somebody has delivered. It has to be based on proven results, which I mentioned in the previous question, that Gen Z or anybody joining the workforce need to understand that I have to prove myself first before I will be valued. So if I assume that my past credentials, and I keep telling people that you can transfer your PF, but you cannot transfer the value that you had in the earlier organization beyond what it appears in the resume. So you have to earn it all over again. So you need to earn your stripes, you need to deliver results before you are valued. So being valued is fine, you will be valued, and I'm sure anybody coming with the right credentials will deliver. But you cannot be impatient about it. If you are too impatient, then the careers can get derailed very soon.
So, I think you were partly already going on the track of AI, and with AI changing jobs faster than job descriptions can be updated, what skills will remain valuable no matter how technology evolves?
I like the term faster than job descriptions can be updated. That's a very good term. So AI, as we are hearing, and there are numerous conferences and all that are going on in AI, there are human discretion that will always be required. That will never go away. So, you cannot do entirely leave it to AI. That is one. More importantly, I'll again come back to what I was saying earlier. What AI will not do is building relations, because unless you build relations, work cannot get done. So while AI can define the algorithm, they can define the data, they can analyze it, they can throw up interpretation, but ultimately where the rubber hits the road, when it comes to execution, when it comes to implementation, AI can throw up ideas also. But when those ideas have to be converted to reality, there has to be a lot of relationship which will come into play. So that relationship in a broad sense, specifically, emotional intelligence, people talk about how one relates to another person, how one is able to influence the other people. Those skills will never go away. So ability to influence, and I keep telling my HR people in particular that HR typically has to have a lot of influencing skills, and that holds true for any function actually, even for sales and for anybody. But those skills will never be taken by AI. AI can create a job description, AI can analyze resumes, AIs can do interviews also, and we are using AI to do interviews. AI can do all of that, but at the end of the day, ability to influence people, ability to build a connection with another person, ability to understand the other person, judgment, as we say, those are the things that will, at least not in the foreseeable future. Now, I don't know what will happen 30 years from now, but today at least those certainly remain human.
So, many Gen Z employees struggle with their first difficult manager. What is the smartest way to deal with a boss who is, let's say, not their favorite human?
It's a very interesting question. And I think that is faced not just by Gen Z, but by any generation.
Yes.
So, one of the things that I'll first give a textbook definition, and then I will give a more pragmatic answer to that question. That textbook definition is, it is important to understand what one's manager wants.
Right.
So the easiest way is to walk away, and that is where Gen X or maybe a Gen Y also, but certainly Gen X will differ from a Gen Z. A Gen X would not walk away, but a Gen Zs tend to walk away very quickly. So my sincere submission to Gen Zs will be, don't walk away. That's the easiest option, to walk away, that I don't like this person and I don't want to work with him.
So take a little harder option.
Take a little harder option. The harder option is try to understand what that manager wants. Ability to managing one's manager is also a very important skill that all of us need to learn. How do we manage, which is our manager, which is to understand what he or she wants? How do I deliver that? What kind of communication style works with him or her? Not every style of communication will work with everyone. What are the good time to talk to him or her? When to ask for permission? When to go ahead with action and then inform? So those are the kind of things one needs to understand one's manager. The second is that, it is also important to know one style. What is not is the problem only with the manager? Do I need to change something in me?
Yeah.
Because it is possible that I switch from one manager to the other, the same problem haunts me there also, because there may be certain things with me which is not working out. It may be my ego.
Absolutely.
It could be anything that is not working out. So understanding, so reflection on one's own self is also important. Last but not the least, I would consider it as a learning opportunity, because life throws various kinds of learning opportunities.
And you will meet so many people all throughout your life, not just the manager.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, once you have gone over a difficult manager, your confidence level goes up significantly. Your confidence, if I could handle that manager, I can handle anybody else. Right. Or much more difficult people. So that, I think, is a very important thing. And understanding the manager, understanding how to influence the manager, how to gain the confidence of the manager, there's a huge learning experience in that.
So Kinjal, my next question is, Gen Z values mental health and boundaries, which is great. But where is the line between healthy boundaries and avoiding discomfort that actually helps them grow?
Anything which makes you do a difficult task is not about mental health. If the feedback is tough, it's not about mental health. If you are being pushed out of your comfort zone to try something new, it's not about mental health. If you are given a task where the probability of success is less than 80%, it's not about mental health. So we need to distinguish between what is going to, if somebody is infringing personal space, of course, yes. If somebody is getting into an abusive language, abusive, culture, toxic culture, those are absolutely, lines have to be drawn. But often, as you rightly mentioned, the line often blurs between these two.
Right.
And many people, when a tough feedback is given, they consider it as toxic culture, which is not really the case, unless
Absolutely
the feedback is given in a very different manner. As long as it is a constructive feedback, even if it is not to one's liking, one cannot,
I think it's about language and tone, like you said.
Correct.
The moment we use the right tone and respectful language, I think nobody would and should feel that they are being attacked.
Correct.
So
that, and the other thing is moving out of comfort zone. So you may be given tasks which are way out of your comfort zone. Are you comfortable in doing that? Things which have not been done before, things you have not done before, nobody has done before. And that's the challenge. If one has to take it rather than considering it as a mental health issue or anything like that.
So my next question is, Gen Z sometimes thinks networking feels fake. So how can young people, build meaningful relationships at work without feeling that they are like playing a corporate game?
Meaningful relationships come when people work together. I mean, this is something that I learned way back in XLRI when we had group projects. When people work together, meaningful relations, happen. Meaningful networking happens. If you do networking for the sake of networking, then it becomes fake. It doesn't hold water in any case. When we help people at work, when we interact with people without any purpose, without any intent, we create a long-term relation. When we interact, when we congratulate people, when we celebrate with other people without any specific purpose. I need something from that person, hence I am saying hello to that person. I generally walk across and talk to that person. I generally work in a project with that person. I generally, ask about that person's journey. The moment you asked about my journey, for instance, I felt very excited in talking about it. Most people do that. When you ask them about their journey, most people will do that, and it does help build a connection.
Yeah.
So
How will you mentally connect with that person unless you genuinely connect with
Absolutely.
them, right? And I feel with Gen Zs, what is the problem is that for everything, there has to be a give and take. And that's where I think they're missing the bus, right? So I totally...
It cannot be transactional. Everything cannot be transactional.
Everything cannot be transactional. Everything cannot be, oh, you give me this and I'll give you that.
True.
Unless there is a genuine human relationship that we will build.
True.
How will we enjoy the workplace? How will we belong to the workplace?
Very
That's
true.
something I have personally experienced,
No,
right?
very true.
So, Kinjal, my next question is, what makes someone leadership material in their 20s? And what do senior leaders actually notice about the young employees that come into the system?
But that's not so difficult. The single important thing that senior leaders look for in people in their early 20s or mid 20s is ownership and accountability. Does the person take ownership and accountability? Does the person own up mistakes, own up failures, or does he or she point fingers at others or blame the circumstances, blame the world for any kind of failure?
I think you've nailed this answer. I'm experiencing this. I mean, I'm also an employer for the last 16 years. You've nailed this answer. I think accountability, like you said, is such an important aspect in Gen Z's journey. And I want you to tell me some incidents where you have experienced lack of ownership and accountability. Can you give me some example of somebody coming in your mind that really made you understood this?
We were going through Great Places to Work certification in, October 2025. And we were also going for a certification from Top Employers Institute, Amsterdam. And we had some changes in our HR team. So suddenly there was one Gen Z who was 2024 batch XISS. She was completely in charge of it. She took complete ownership of it. She did it on her own in a span of 6 to 8 weeks. We were running against a tight deadline, and she took complete ownership, accountability of it, and day in, day out, she, as if it depended on her, as if it was her own personal thing. That is the ownership and accountability that I can think of, where she took complete accountability for the entire thing.
Brilliant. Sounds so
that's
promising. So you are saying that once Gen Z does take accountability and ownership, they also deliver.
Absolutely.
Very smart.
So I was answering your question that what are the qualities in the 20s that are there. So one is, of course, ownership and accountability, and that gets seen. The other one is ability to take others along. Now, that is where some people,
can feel jealous.
Correct. So, taking others along, it's not an individual game, it's a team game. So, as one rises up the hierarchy, one has to take others along, whether it is peers, whether it is your own team, so on and so forth.
I think, Kinjal, it takes a lot of security from within for somebody to take everybody along. And inclusion is a topic that I deal with almost every day. And I felt during my journey that insecurity is one of the key reasons why people are unable to take all together. And because maybe, I'm not secured, so I will not sort of feel comfortable you coming into my team and I'll be threatened. The moment I think that insecurity is dealt is when we make our nature to be very inclusive. What's been your take on this?
Absolutely. Insecurity is one of the reasons why, many boss-subordinate relation also suffer. Because sometimes the boss gets insecure of his or her own subordinate. That, this person may outshine me, this person may, this thing. And that's the worst thing that can happen. If there is an insecurity of the boss, it can spoil things. Insecurity amongst peers is still understandable.
But एक अच्छा गुरु तो वही होता है ना जब उसका चेला उससे बेहतर करता है.
Absolutely, but very few people actually internalize it. What you said is very true. That's the way it should be. But there are umpteen cases I have seen in the last 3 decades where there is intense rivalry between the subordinate and the manager because the manager feels threatened, exactly as you said, feels threatened by the subordinate becoming superior to him.
Right.
The third thing I will say is bias for action. Does the person not only take ownership and accountability, take others along? Does he or she demonstrate a bias for action? That is very important for a leadership role, and therefore that is something that is seen in the early 20s. Just to complete the question.
Yes. Brilliant answer. In fact, I totally resonate with the third point. Bias for action is the key reason why projects can be delivered on time with precision.
True.
Right. The next and the last question almost is, after decades of watching thousands of careers rise and fall, what advice would you give to your 22-year-old self? If you were 22 in 2026.
Right. Be patient with the results. Results don't come overnight. That's one. Careers are not linear equations. Not everybody will move at the same pace at the same time. So there are times when you will have to work the hard yards. You may not get a result immediately, but the results will ultimately come. Third, focus on learning instead of earning at the age of 22. That is more important. If I have learned the skills, the money will follow. I don't need to chase money. Fourth is, I need to build my credibility, which is through not just competence but also commitment. Keeping deadlines, ensuring I'm delivering results, not just once or twice, because careers are not of a T20 match. It has to be done again and again and again and again. So consistency in result delivery will be the other thing. This is the advice that I will give to my 22-year-old self.
Thank you, Kinjal. I think this was one of the most, in terms of speed, it was the fastest podcast that I've shot. And your answers were so sharp, really, really well thought of and well crafted and framed. So thank you so much for coming on Office Tales and People podcast. And I would love to take this entire conversation to the maximum people and specifically Gen Z.
Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you. Thank you for watching Office Tales and People podcast with me and Kinjal. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between both of us on Gen Z. And if you did, please forward it to all the Gen Zs who must watch this episode. Until next episode, ciao.